I think about I was thinking today about the people that pick up our garbage every day, that work outdoors in all these conditions. I have even more respect for them because I get to sit there in a suit with far too many thermals on that squeeze me way too much. I mean, I wore this instead of going thermal.
Right.
I won insular, which is Under Armour.
Yeah.
You know, so it just squeezes you tight. Right.
Yeah, you wore a onesie.
No, I didn't go onesie.
You were wearing a girdle.
Right, no, I was just wearing. I was wearing the tight version of Under Armour, almost the first version from 1982. So together, I think I actually got warm about an hour ago.
Some people call them Spanx.
I do not wear Spanx.
I'm going to reveal a story. The way I kept warm because it was so cold is I took 2 pairs of shoes yesterday.
Yes.
And every 20 minutes, I would put the shoes next to the big furnace that we had up in the tent. Here's the problem. 7:45 yesterday, I picked up the shoes. They had melted. Whatever keeps the sole to the shoe
had
melted.
Disconnected?
Yeah. Anyway.
That's why we should have a shoemaker on staff or a blacksmith, right? To put that back together.
Grateful for our staff, because our staff, we sat there for 3 hours. They had to be there for hours before to set all of that up and hours after.
But unlike our staff, we had to be sober.
We've got some pictures we're going to show you in a little while, but in the meantime, will we see that FISA memo later today? There's a possibility that there's a Reuters story out. Apparently, they talked to somebody at the White House. The memo released regarding FISA abuses at the Department of Justice and the FBI could be released today, although it sounds like the White House Chief Counsel and the National Security Council also are reviewing. I bet we don't see it till Monday.
Well, the House voted on Monday night, and then the president has 5 days.
Yeah.
So that means Saturday night, or is it 5 working days, which would be Monday? I would think, though, I was thinking about this last night, he might not release it until Monday, so the Sunday shows can focus on his speech.
Yeah, well, they'll still focus on the memo, though. In the perfect world, that would be great. But the speech was already almost off the headlines because the FBI pushed back on Devin Nunes's memo. So I think it's important to actually give you the foundation of this. Devin Nunes, who is chairman of Oversight, he sees this material that he thinks should go public. He can't believe it. And next thing you know, he's under an ethics investigation. So the Oversight Committee, Intelligence Committee, asks the FBI, can you give me some of this information? The FBI ignores. It took a subpoena to get this information to come forward in front of the Intelligence Committee, which to me is inexcusable. When it does come forward, Devin Nunes says, you know what, I'm going to just write up a summary. I'm going to give it to the president to let the people know what went into the investigation of the Trump organization leading up to the election and afterwards, at which time the memo arrives at the White House, where the FBI director on Sunday takes a look at it. On Monday, we didn't think he had a problem with it. Yesterday, 5 FBI agents show up. They look at it and they said, hey, Chief Kelly, we got a problem with this. He goes, what's your problem? He makes some changes. They make some grammatical changes, as Devin Nunes. So at that time, he makes some changes. He thinks it's for the better. The FBI is still not happy. And guess who else isn't happy? Adam Schiff. He says, you've changed the memo that I okayed.
Right, and he's suggesting, look, he's done all he can, Adam Schiff, to keep it from coming out. Nonetheless, the FBI and the Department of Justice are hitting the panic button because they don't want it out. Here is what the Department of Justice released. They said, with regard to the House Intelligence Committee's memorandum, the FBI was provided a limited opportunity to review this memo the day before the committee voted to release it. That was on Sunday. That's when Chris Wray went over to the Capitol. As expressed during our initial review, we gave grave concerns about material omissions of fact that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. And then the next day, after Chris Wray saw it, 5 guys went over, they looked at it. Next thing you know, they got some suggestions, they made it, and Adam Schiff is saying, oh, they changed everything. They actually made some changes the Democrats asked for.
Nunes, of course, is saying, he's saying the FBI doesn't want this released because it shows the abuse of power within that agency. He also said this, having stonewalled Congress's demands for information for nearly a year, it's no surprise to see the FBI and the DOJ issue spurious objections to allowing the American people to see information related to surveillance abuses at these agencies.
Right.
So he's saying he's not surprised because they've stonewalled everything for a year.
So the question is the FBI concerned about the relationship of intelligence as it relates to the Intelligence Committee and methods and practices, or are they worried it's going to make them look terrible and individuals in particular look awful? And is that what they're here to stop? When Devin Nunes says, yeah, I think it's the latter, because Why else would they be stopping us as the Intelligence Committee from getting this information 4 months? Why did I have to go through the courts to get this intelligence to begin with?
Well, here's the thing, because they did make some changes. There are some on the left who said, okay, we didn't vote for that version. Of course, they all voted against it anyway. You're going to have a revote. If they do have a revote, which 50-50 chance right now on what would be released to the public, the earliest they could have it is on Monday, because remember, half of Congress is out in West Virginia.
That's
Good
right.
point.
That's right.
Meanwhile, the Democrats continue to have a meltdown about the president's first State of the Union address. You know, you saw their faces, you saw the grim looks, you saw that they didn't stand up when the parents of a family lost their child to MS-13 was given recognition for the courage to come forward and the need to push back on this international gang operation. But again, it's a little confusing. We thought Joe Kennedy gave the official response to the State of the Union as tradition. But it turns out a lot of people gave a response to the State of the Union, unlike tradition.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi said it was insulting to call it chain migration, that she prefers family reunification. Maxine Waters is using the race card. She says the president is racist. She's the one who kept calling for impeachment. Listen to this. This is from last night.
One speech cannot and does not make Donald Trump presidential. He's not presidential, and he never will be presidential. He claims that he's bringing people together, but make no mistake, he is a dangerous, unprincipled, divisive, and shameful racist. Trump often works to convince dissatisfied elements in our society that all of their problems are caused by people of color.
Okay, so there you've got Maxine Waters issuing her rebuttal on BET. Regarding the actual State of the Union, I think 45 million watched it on all the television channels. I think Barack Obama's final one was seen by about 15 million, less than that. But keep in mind, the longer you're in office, the fewer people watch. The #1 cable outfit was Fox News Channel. It was also the #1 outfit that Americans turned to. We had over 11 million. It is the highest rating in cable history when it comes to the State of the Unions, and we have to thank you for turning us on.
Also, when it comes to social media, 21 million interactions across Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. 21 million measured. 41% occurred on Facebook, 7% on Instagram, 52% on the president's favorite vehicle, and that is Twitter.
It was the most tweeted State of the Union ever.
And the reason we tell you this is because it's obvious that many people around the country, millions of people around the country, want to hear what this president has to say. Many people are on board with him, despite what you might hear from Maxine Waters or from Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
Not everyone agrees with him, but he does have a lot of support, and they need to keep that in mind because they have big elections coming up come November.
And the thing about the elections is, keep in mind, yesterday we had Lee Carter on, and she tested some of the sound bites from the president, and the Republicans gave him good grades, but the independents, the people who actually move elections and determine who our president would be, more closely aligned to the Republicans now than the Democrats, and that is not good for the Democrats, who are saying it's a slam dunk, it's over, show's over. Paul Ryan, give us your hammer.
Yesterday, you had a big guest on radio.
Yeah, and on FoxNews.com, Frank Luntz came out and says, I apologize to the president. In the beginning, he was an anti-Trumper. He listened to that speech and thought he just hit it out of the park. Frank Luntz, the pollster. Meanwhile, this is a big story that our producer was able to uncover. There was this high school teacher talking to a bunch of 17-year-olds, at which time he noticed one of the students wearing a Marine shirt, and he commented about the lack of intellect among those who serve in America's military. Here is now suspended teacher with pay, Greg Salcido.
You got a bunch of dumb. Think about the people who you know are over there. Your freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever. They're dumb. They're not like high-level thinkers. They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the freaking lowest of our low. Not morally. I'm not saying they make bad moral decisions. Just they're not talented people.
So the big question is what's going to happen to him. Last night out in his school district, 150 people showed up demanding answers. The school board, though, is kind of in a pickle because currently they don't have an attorney. So the main thing the school board did last night was they said, OK, we need an attorney and we need one fast.
They put him on administrative leave until they can figure out what to do.
So yesterday I played this for the Chief of Staff, General Kelly. We had a chance to bring the radio show to the White House. He heard it for the first time. Then I read it to him because he couldn't make out some of the audio. And this is the response that we can play on television.
What is your reaction to that, knowing that he's teaching a bunch of 17-year-olds this? Well, I think the guy ought to go to hell. I just hope he enjoys the liberties and the lifestyle that we have fought for.
And he got angrier and angrier, and we had to dump some of his response.
He makes an excellent point. He lost his own son fighting for our country. He said he has gone down to Arlington and walked, down through all the graves and said, because of my decisions, a lot of these people are here. He takes this very seriously, as most of us do, and most of us should, all of us should. But he's saying this guy has the freedom to teach in the classroom because of what these men and women have done.
And the guy's a government and history teacher. So what form of government and history is he teaching?
17-year-olds.
We've got one of the kids from that class, the kid, Victor Quinones, the student who taped that teacher. He's going to be joining us at 8:20 Eastern Time right here exclusively on Fox & Friends. We'll hear from you how he felt when the teacher went off on people who serve our
That's an exclusive. He hasn't talked to anyone yet.
That's right. All right, 6:12 here in New York City. President Obama wanted to shut Gitmo down, but President Trump just made good on another one of his campaign promises. He's going to keep it open. Dr. James Mitchell interrogated the mastermind of 9/11. He's live next.
Plus, you saw them at the State of the Union, parents who lost their children to MS-13, but MSNBC doesn't think that's a problem.
He gives a speech tonight in which he makes it sound like the biggest issue in the United States, the biggest threat is MS-13, a gang nobody that doesn't watch Fox News has ever heard of.
The mom of one of those murdered children is firing back.
Got the feeling that we're meeting for the first time.
President Trump announcing during his State of the Union address, to the surprise of many, that he fulfilled another one of his campaign pledges. Listen.
So today I'm keeping another promise to re-examine our military detention policy and to keep open the detention facilities in Guantanamo Bay.
Half the room applauded. So why is leaving Gitmo open so essential to keeping America safe? Joining us right now to weigh in is a true expert on this matter, the author of Enhanced Interrogation, Dr. James Mitchell, who interrogated some of the worst terrorists in the world. Some are still at Gitmo. Dr. Mitchell, what was your reaction when you heard that?
I was pleased. I was concerned that we were going to try to do something to move it out of the realms of being an unlawful act of war and move it towards being a criminal enterprise, a civilian criminal enterprise. I don't think we should do that. I think that would make us less safe. And there were two things that he said about that: keeping Gitmo open and continuing to treat these terror attacks outside of our country as unlawful acts of war. I think those are important policies.
So the counter argument. And the reason why half the room sat is because they say it's a symbol for terrorists to mobilize. You have Gitmo. That's where they put us. Now we have to really hate America.
My reaction is, I've talked to a lot of terrorists. I doubt that anybody sitting in that room, other than maybe some of the military and some of the intelligence community, actually has talked to a terrorist. I haven't talked to a single terrorist who told me that they were attacking us because of Gitmo. They're attacking us because they find our way of life repulsive, and they want to destroy it and the religious ideology. And in fact, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11, said Gitmo is just used as a recruiting tool. If it wasn't Gitmo, it would be something else.
Wow, he told you that. So President Bush transferred 500 out. 197 detainees out were by President Obama. We're left with 41. 5 have been cleared for release by the previous administration. The question is, when we get them, how do we effectively interrogate them? Is your way the right way that we should be using now?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Here's my honest reaction to that. My honest reaction to that is, I don't think enhanced interrogation is necessary for 99.5% of the people, the terrorists that we capture. But for that 0.5% who has information that could stop a catastrophic attack inside of the United States that involves nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons, I think we ought to leave everything on the table. And I don't think that we're doing that now. And my concern about the Army Field Manual is that it's on the internet. It describes the techniques, it tells people how they're thought to work, and it emphasizes the need to get voluntary admissions, voluntary information. And what I would ask people is, do you really want to wager the safety of your family on the bet that a terrorist whose God sent him there to kill you is willing to provide voluntarily information to stop those attacks? I don't think we should.
Nope. Thanks so much, Dr. Mitchell. Very important things to bring up. Also, when we talk about immigration and the visa lottery system, a couple of those guys came through the visa lottery system. So, straight ahead, Republican lawmakers spring into action after their train slams into a garbage truck. All were stunned by this. Senator Bill Cassidy, a doctor, helping out. He ran to help. What he did and more in a moment.
6:24 here in New York City and in West Virginia. We're back with the Fox News alert. We now know the identity of that person killed when a garbage truck collided with that Amtrak train packed with half of Congress in it. All the Republican lawmakers traveling to a resort were on that train.
The NTSB now taking over that investigation, trying to figure out exactly what went wrong.
All right, Griff Jenkins is still at the scene right now in Virginia with the breaking details. Griff, behind you is the wreckage.
That's right. Good morning. The identity, by the way, of that fatality, Christopher Foley, 28 years old. But look at this debris field behind me. You see the trash truck, the trash strewn all along the embankment as you work your way up to that rail crossing. The cab of that truck smashed where Mr. Foley, along with two others, were in there, one critically injured, one with minor injuries. And the NTSB working hard on this scene as they have all night. We went to the press conference last night and spoke with the spokesman, Earl Weiner. Here's what he had to say about the investigation.
We expect this to take several days of on-scene work, followed by months back at headquarters. If we find anything that indicates that this was intentional, we will turn that over to the FBI.
Amtrak says, guys, far too common, the wrecks and crashes in railways just like this. But the real remarkable story, those GOP congressmen turned first responders when the impact happened. Guys?
Exactly right. All right, Griff, thank you.
Yeah, lots of good Samaritans. Thank you, Griff. Our next guest was among a handful of the physicians on that train who rushed to the victims to rescue some of them inside the truck, pulling the injured to safety.
All right, Senator Bill Cassidy joins us right now. Dr. Bill Cassidy. Senator, I know you've been through this, and I know it's still fresh, but for our viewers, can you go through what goes through your mind as a doctor when you feel the impact of your train slamming into something?
You're not sure what's happened. You first look to see that those people who are standing who fell are okay. You hear that we hit a truck, and I'm thinking to myself, we have doctors on board, but there's no doctor in that truck. And that truck got slammed harder than we. So I start to work to the back of the train looking for an open door. You go out, you see two people on the ground, and you start to work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dr. Cassidy, or Senator Cassidy, your wife is a retired trauma surgeon. She was on board with you traveling. Both of you jumped off the train, I understand, and went to help. What did you see when you got to the truck? Because we're reporting that one of the passengers was killed.
Yes, I went down and I saw Mike Burgess and Brad Winstrup trying to maintain an airway. The fellow had facial trauma, trying to keep his tongue out and again maintain airway. And I picked up his feet to try and get his blood going from his feet down to his heart and his brain. I looked to the right and there's a body there that looks like he's dead. But Dr. Phil Rowe was there, a congressman from Tennessee. My wife approached and others. There's an attempt to revive, but he was dead. I mean, that was pretty clear. And then we turned our attention back to, I never left my attention, but you kind of say, he's dead, focus here.
Yeah. You know, Congressman Winstrom is one of the guys who tended to Steve Scalise at that baseball practice not so long ago. Between that and this, how do you feel? This has been a heck of a year for you. Republicans in Congress.
It has been. I hate to say this, but all of us live as if our lives are going to be within 2 standard deviations of what it's normally. But most times it's that way out in the distance that happens to us. And I've been a doctor long enough that it's not a surprise. It's not what you expect. But all of us can point to, wow, who would have thought that? But it changed a life or lost a life. Mm-hmm. And that was one of these instances.
So, Senator, there's a reporter on CNN, a political commentator, that tweeted this out. A train carrying Republican members of Congress hits a truck near Charlottesville. Or is this a metaphor for American politics today? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah. It is. If we've gotten to the point in our society where you can't even be civil and understand there's a tragedy and a potentially worse tragedy and feel for that and as part of the human condition, something has died. And hopefully it can be reawakened. But Tim Kaine sent out something very nice, Democratic senator, but sent a very nice tweet. That's good. If someone's sending something like that, they really have to reevaluate their spiritual state. Something is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, a loss of life. Their parents are grieving. The guy who was driving the truck, I'm sure, is so upset this morning. Real quickly, what happened in the situation? Do we know? Was the guy trying to beat the train?
I'm told, yes. I'm told that most commonly there's long coal trains and folks get kind of impatient, so they're slow, so they try and get in front of them. And here comes an Amtrak, which is going faster. Not too fast, but faster. But that's what I'm told, not what I directly observed.
Right. And Congress, Senator, before you go, you were heading to, and now you're at, this Republican retreat in West Virginia. Are the activities that were scheduled yesterday still on tap? Is the Vice President, the President, still scheduled to speak to you later?
Yes, the Vice President spoke yesterday. The President will speak today. I'm told Secretaries Mattis and Tillerson will speak. And so it's an important conference. We'll speak of infrastructure packages. So we don't want to be diverted from that. I think it's important to what we do in the Senate and the House. But we will have a constant remembrance of what happened yesterday.
Yeah, you're going to a legislative cliff on February 6th, and you got something to do by March 5th. So there's no time even to look back. You got so much on your plate. Dr. Cassidy, it's always great talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. It is 6:30 now here in New York City. Coming up, people left dangling upside down on a roller coaster. Look at that, 70 feet in the air. How did that happen, and how'd they get them off? Coming up.
Plus, today's the day you'll start to see more money in your paycheck, thanks to President Trump's tax cuts. But Maxine Waters wants to give President Obama a lot of the credit.
He attempts to take credit for economic growth, but refuses to acknowledge that he inherited our nation's thriving economy from our nation's first black president.
It's President Obama's tax cut. Where was I? Was I off that day?
Hey, Stuart. Good morning. He's next.
Hey. This is your shot of the morning, our behind-the-scenes moments from 2 days covering the State of the Union live from D.C. Check out the all-star selfie. You have David Bossie posing with Corey Lewandowski, Sarah Sanders, and Dan Bongino, as well as Tucker Carlson.
Smile. Here I am behind the set, getting ready.
Right
there we go. Getting ready with Jason Chaffetz. He joined us both days as well. Great guest.
And this was our set, and this was us reading those scripts cold. We keep the photographers way back.
Speaking of cold.
Yes. Yeah.
And here we are wrapping up 2 jam-packed days with a fantastic group of great guests.
And there we are as well at the conclusion of the first day.
See Trey Gowdy slightly pushing away there. He was signaling to us he's leaving the Congress. Right there. Don't you see? I didn't even realize it.
Stepping away.
Hey,
it's like the Zapruder film.
Meanwhile, here's, not exactly, here's Stuart Varney. He's the host of Varney and Company over on Fox Business. Good morning to you, sir.
I was not with you in Washington, D.C. I'm like great wine.
You had
I
to
don't
hold
travel
down the
well.
fort here.
You were
Yes,
warm enough.
I'm on Wall Street, okay? I've handled money.
All right,
Okay.
it was all about money on Capitol Hill.
Yes,
It was talking about the economy, because you're in a business that has wins and losses, ups and downs, and we have numbers. Why is it that so many Democrats are having trouble realizing that the economy's going up, GDP is going up, and paychecks may be going up?
Paychecks are going up as of this month, as of today, because tax rates have come down. Paychecks will go up.
So
is that clear?
So the federal government's going to be taking out less money?
Yes, taking out less money. Let's be very clear about this. Paychecks are going up because tax rates are going down. That's a. Shall I repeat it? No. Let me repeat what Nancy Pelosi has said 3 times. She said.
In fact, you know what we did? We recorded it on our VCR.
What does that mean? You're going to run a soundbite?
Just push the play button.
Push the play button.
This is actually the reaction from the vice president because Nancy Pelosi called it crumbs. And our president said, these aren't crumbs. People have paying for their weddings. They're paying for their retirements. This is what the vice president had to say yesterday.
It's just amazing to me that after this tax cut passes, 3 million Americans get another $1,000 in their pockets in many cases. She actually described that as crumbs. Well, let me just remind you all, I come from the Joseph A. Bank wing of the West Wing. Seriously, people stop me and say, is that a new suit? And I said, 2 for 1. Back when our kids were little, another $1,000 in my pocket at the end of the year, I had a term for that, Christmas. Or maybe a new refrigerator, a down payment on the car. Any leader in America that would say $1,000 in the pockets of working families is crumbs is out of touch with the American people.
Wow.
That will be true. That would be very true.
It is true.
Bonuses to 3 million Americans, already paid largely. That is not crumbs. $1,000 or $500 to an ordinary, everyday American is not a crumb. And Nancy Pelosi is dead wrong when she says that 86 million middle-class American families will see a tax increase because of this tax bill. Dead wrong, deliberately misleading the American
The
public.
only thing I don't agree with him on that is I think Joseph A. Banks is like buy 1, get 3 free.
It was a good line.
It is a great line.
Stuart, and the crumbs don't even take into consideration with the tax cuts. A lot of corporations have more money in their pockets, and so what they're doing is they're buying new equipment, they're expanding, they're hiring more people. But there are a number of Democrats, though, who, and Brian kind of touched on this a moment ago, who are crediting President Obama for the roaring economy.
Wait a second. Just let's look at the record for 2017. It was the best year for pay gains since 2008. Best year for pay gains in 10 years. And look at the job situation in 2017 compared to the last year of President Obama. There were 2.2 million more full-time jobs in 2017 under President Trump and 300,000 fewer part-time jobs.
How do you explain that?
What does that tell you about the quality of job creation in America? 2017 Trump versus 2016 Mr. Obama. It tells you that the quality of job creation has improved enormously and pay is going up. That is President Trump. And it's President Trump because he reversed the policies of President Obama. It's a direct reversal.
Right.
This is the Trump economy, not the Obama economy. Case closed.
And President Obama could have had that corporate tax cut. He knew it would fuel the economy, but he also wanted to rise the upper bracket.
Look.
And that's where the Republican Congress stood tall.
His entire approach to the economy was radically different from President Trump. President Obama wanted to restrict it, rein it in, regulate it, tax it, plan it, organize it, top down. Didn't work. Slow growth. President Trump, take the regulations away, lower taxes, unleash the animal spirits of capitalism. Why are you laughing?
I never heard that term.
Animal spirits.
Yeah, I like it. Hey, Stu, we're going to watch it from 9 to noon on FBN, okay?
Promise.
All right.
Thank you.
I will be watching.
Thanks,
All right.
Stuart.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, 20 minutes before the top of the hour, while we were down in D.C. freezing, Jillian was keeping the lights on for us.
I'm very happy to have you guys back here, by the way. Welcome back, and good morning to you at home. Let's start with this. An MSNBC host slamming President Trump for highlighting the dangerous MS-13 gang at the State of the Union.
He makes it sound like the biggest issue in the United States, the biggest threat is MS-13, a gang nobody that doesn't watch Fox News has ever heard of. So he makes it sound like they're the biggest threat.
Well, parents of 2 teens killed by the gang invited to the address, one of them now firing back at that host.
I have no words. I mean, these are gang members that just, decided to be a judge and a jury to take my daughter out like that. It's unacceptable.
Many MS-13 members are also illegal immigrants. 3.5 minutes of complete panic. Insane video showing terrified passengers dangling upside down nearly 70 feet in the air, crying and screaming for help after a ride suddenly stops working. Officials at an Australian theme park say the safety operating system automatically engaged on the Doomsday Destroyer. It was back up and running within minutes, and no one was hurt. A hero's homecoming coming as a complete shock to his family. Army specialist Tyler Hollandworth surprising his mom and 2 little brothers at their school in Missouri. They never saw this one coming.
Oh, oh my God! Oh my God!
What the?
Tyler!
Oh, that's adorable. Hollandsworth spent the last year stationed in South Korea. So look at your headlines, guys. Send it back to you.
There's no place like home.
Absolutely.
Is there a reality show about that? There needs to be a show where it just continuously does these things.
All the
We all love
homecomings?
watching them, yeah.
Well, we do a little episode every day.
That's true. No, that's
Good.
true.
All right, thank you,
We thank
Jillian.
them for their service. Thanks, Jillian. The FBI doesn't want that FISA memo released, obviously, but President Trump says it's going to be.
Let's release the memo. Oh, yeah. Don't worry. 100%.
Judge Andrew Napolitano is on deck. We made him go on the stairs. And he says you got a right to see it.
Hello, Judge.
All right.
How are you?